The access of fresh drinking water is actually kind of insanely good here. Not just in this region, but the entire country. And this spot is actually the perfect representation of why it's like that. It's now the 25th of June, but there's still some snow left in the mountains. And it's not just like that up in the north, it's also like that in the higher mountains further south. But a really cool thing about this place is everything is in a very small scale. So you can easily visualize where all the snow is collecting in the mountains and slowly melting throughout the summer. And where the water is creating rivers and valleys, and later on ending up in small lakes like this. Which again works as a reservoir while the water is making the final way all the way down to the ocean. And actually having water run through rocks and sand and moss all the way down here is a very good filter. So as long as I don't touch the bottom, this water is extremely clean. But while I'm here, I can actually try to get up there and give you a close-up of everything going on. I also think I need to tidy up inside the car tonight because it's getting ridiculous in here. But I found donuts, so it's okay. Currently getting a lot closer to the top, but I would not want to hike directly underneath this rotten rockfall. So I think I'll try to make my way up here, getting my way all the way up to the sun. As a matter of fact, I can actually show you on a very small scale. If you imagine this rock sticking out here being the highlands of Norway, you will have the lowlands and the west coast at that end, and you will have the lowlands of the east coast and Sweden on this side. So every time it's raining, you will have water hitting the highlands and then flowing out evenly on both sides. And during the winter, when it's snowing, you have the same process happening, but the snow will be stuck here, kind of working as a battery and being evenly distributed throughout the year. Kind of the opposite of a flat country where all the snow will melt almost at the same time as soon as spring comes. And with the entire country sticking out of the ocean like a sore thumb, you will have a lot of weather coming from the sea and getting stuck in these mountains on the west coast, actually resulting in a lot of these places on the west coast being classified as a rainforest. The car I'm traveling with and also living full time in is obviously not the biggest platform, and it's easy to assume that you would need to have everything very organized inside such a small living space. And you might also think that you can't really bring everything you need in your life inside such a small car. Truth be told, I actually have a lot more stuff in here than what I actually need. And I'm not the most organized person, so after a couple of weeks on the road again, I had to throw everything out of the car now just to reorganize everything. And I haven't even started with all the boxes on the roof. So all you see here is just everything I had inside the living compartment. And with everything pulled out of the car, I think it's a lot easier for me to actually show how it looks on the inside. When I built this, I thought I had enough room in here to have this set up as a bench during the day with a workstation up here, and then just transform it into the bed platform when I had to sleep. But with the limited space I have, it's always set up for sleeping, so I should have focused on making a platform with the bed on top, with storage options that slides out the back of the car instead. But then again, it's very easy to complain about small inconveniences like that, but to be honest, I don't really need anything to be perfect to be able to live in this. And I also kind of forget that I used to live in this car while it was completely stock, as a matter of fact for more than a year. So you don't really need to build out anything inside the car as long as you have a solid platform, as the Discovery. And speaking of the Discovery, you might wonder why on earth would you want to travel around full time in such a unreliable car? And as a photographer, one of the reasons is just how good it looks. And when it comes to the unreliability of it, I've driven this car about 270,000 kilometers now without any major issues. But it's not a car that you can just buy and assume that everything will be alright without really paying any attention to it. And just because there's a Land Rover badge in the grille doesn't mean it's the Land Rover parts that keeps on failing. Because on the Discovery 4, the weakest part of everything is actually the engine. Which is a shame because it's a very good engine, but it's a Ford engine and it has a tendency of snapping the crankshaft. And if you go online and search Discovery 4 air suspension, you will find a lot of people having problems with that. But it doesn't take into consideration that this completely stock air suspension setup has driven 270,000 kilometers. So if you down the line have to change a compressor or a valve block or something like that, it's not really something to complain about if you set it up compared to a normal coil suspension. Anyhow, if you drive a Land Rover like this, you kind of need to lean into the stereotype of Land Rovers being really bad, because that keeps the prices down for us, you know. And when it breaks down, at least it looks very good while you're standing on the side of the road trying to fix it yourself or waiting for recovery.
Kinda mysterious, shaded with someone I'm not really into. Do you need to fix it? Talking bullshit. It's hard to see you when your eyes look dull. Who's gonna save you? Who's gonna make you not blue? Not blue. Blue too. That blue. Sort of witty and jaded, but let's not talk about you. Your coyote song on a rerun.
Everything that people know before, like, in the same way with the Discovery, it's kind of an unlikely hero, and because of that, people like to follow it because it isn't the obvious choice.
When I first woke up today, it was probably around 30 degrees inside the car, because I'm not really prepared for having this good weather, but I'm not complaining at all. I did wake up a bit earlier today because I'm planning a trip with a friend of mine, so I kind of need to readjust to a normal sleep schedule. And instead of just lurking around in the middle of the night, it is very nice to take advantage of this kind of weather. And with some extra time this morning or afternoon, I'm making myself a proper breakfast with a pasta with pesto as well as some fried halloumi. The guy I'm traveling with tomorrow is Jack, and he's actually up here doing some seasonal work, working with tourists Basically for the same reason that I did that. And last night we had a phone call planning this trip of ours, and we ended up talking about our cars, because neither of them is the most logical choice for most people. And I really like that because it's just something else. And he's not traveling with a Land Rover, he's traveling with a Volkswagen Synchro, and he's doing a bunch of remote work as well as working up here for the summer. And when he's not working, he's traveling around in a bunch of different countries with the Synchro, as well as his homeland, the UK. And apart from getting up a bit earlier to adjust to Jack's sleep schedule, it's actually very nice to be up in the middle of the day for once. Especially when it's actually more than 20 degrees for once. Funny enough, I was up here at the start of June filming a ultramarathon, and it was around 0 degrees during the night with the additional snow and hail. So this is very nice. In the last video I talked about the gas struts for the rear latch, and it looks like that's being sorted with a company over in the UK. And that means I don't need to use my shovels to keep the upper lid open, which makes it a lot easier to kick the boot open while I'm lying in bed, making it possible to slowly wake up to views like this.